Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen here, Rob Shmuel Ben Yehoshua, Rashbi, here with you in this week's 10-minute Torah. This week we are on the portion of Yitro, Jethro, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, thank you to everybody that came out for our virtual Tu Bishvat event. We had our little Seder. We recognized the seven species. We sang some songs. And once again, we're going to see about doing one of those every month, a big event. We can get everybody together on Zoom since we can't get together in the synagogue right now because of the COVID restrictions. So we're going to find ways to compensate and still be together as a community, Kal Yisrael. So thank you everybody for coming. Next week we've got the worldwide wrap. We're going to do something very similar. Sunday morning on February 7th, instead of the second session of Hebrew school, we are going to talk about wrapping tefillin. It is a commandment. It is, and the way the rabbis and the sages have developed it was based on the verbiage in the Torah. We'll get to that when we do that. Please tune in. It's a very interesting, very important mitzvah. You know, we're basically taking the words of Hashem and putting it on our body and really owning it, really committing to it, that covenant. So please be there. Anyway, let's talk about this week's portion because this week's portion, Yithro, contains the Ten Commandments. But there's a lot of buildup that happens first. So the reason the portion is called Jethro, aside from the fact that the name of Jethro is mentioned within the first verse or two of the portion, is because Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law, right, Zipporah's father, the chieftain of Midian, comes and wants to pay homage to Moses. He heard what happened, as did a lot of the communities in the area, and he, personally involved with Moses. He wants to come and he is so taken, he is so overwhelmed by what Hashem did for the children of Israel that the sages say that at this point he's accepting the yoke of Hashem on himself as well. He is basically, this is the first time we're seeing somebody convert to Judaism. And he wants to come and he brings, of course, Moses' wife Zipporah and his two sons, Gershom and Eliezer, that Moses has sent off because he felt that it was too dangerous for them to be involved in, be there with him in Egypt. So he comes and he brings his family there and he sees what Moses is doing. Moses is sitting there day in and day out. He's got a long line of people. I'm laughing because it almost reminds me of what's going on with COVID, with the COVID vaccinations, right? So think about it. Would you want one person vaccinating everybody against COVID? No. We delegate. This is the first time in history that we're looking at delegation, middle management in a sense. Jethro's telling Moses that look, this is ridiculous. You're going to be worn out. And the implications, you would think, is that if Moses is worn out by the end of the day, how good is his judging capacity going to be? Now, of course, he's imbued with the spirit of Hashem, with the Shekhinah, and he's a prophet. And you would think that, whatever happens to his physical body, it wouldn't interfere with his judgment, with his ability to adjudicate any issues that the children of Israel have. But he's human, right? So Jethro is like, look, for the important stuff, yes, you should adjudicate, but for the little stuff, kind of stuff that we would maybe take to a small claims court, why don't you delegate? Have people that are captains of thousands, captains of hundreds, captains of 50, captains of 10, which was, by the way, the beginning of the Beit Din, the three elders that listened to a minor issue. And that way, people get served quicker. You won't be so worn out. And think about this, because part of the verbiage, if you look at it, says that teach them Torah. That's what you do. You're teaching them Torah. When you're a teacher and you're teaching somebody something, you develop the knowledge. You know the knowledge better because you're teaching it. You're interacting with it. It's becoming part of you. So in a way, this is the first time these people are being instructed in Torah, right? Now, I know what you're saying. Moses hasn't gone up and got the commandments yet, but you know what? Again, Torah has been there forever. Torah is God's law. Torah is as old as God, Hashem himself, which is eternal. It's just that that's when it was written down, and that's when it was codified, when it was given to Moses, the Ten Commandments and the other commandments. So, in a sense, this is the first time Moses is teaching his people God's law. Now, this is an interesting distinction between the conservative viewpoint, as espoused by the Sonsino edition, Dr. Joseph Hertz's commentary on the Chumash, on the Torah, versus the Orthodox discussion, which is discussed in the Art Scroll Chumash. The Art Scroll says that there are some sages that hold Moses accountable, saying, look, you're God's prophet. Don't pawn this off on other people. You are close to God. You should be adjudicating it no matter what. So, kind of an interesting distinction between the Orthodox viewpoint and the conservative viewpoint. The conservative, again, is that, delegate, give these people some independence and let them learn the knowledge, as opposed to the Orthodox. No, it's your responsibility alone. You need to do this yourself. So part of the distinction, too, is the fact that, he needs men who are beyond the pale of being biased or against people. They can't be bribed. They have no reason to be swayed by any particular carrot, if you will, any particular reward for maybe adjudicating a certain way, because they have enough money, they have enough riches, they don't desire anything else. This is a character trait, a positive character trait that people can put aside their desire for material goals or for material rewards for adjudicating a certain way. They're only going to look at this based on the facts. Very important. No bias at all. And later on, we see that there's a commandment saying that when you're adjudicating, if you have a rich man and a poor man, you don't decide for the poor man because you feel sorry for him because he doesn't have money. The rich man can afford to pay the penalty. You don't do that. Whoever's at fault's at fault. That's the way it is. You want to give the charity, you can do that later, right? But in the meantime, you adjudicate based on the merits of the situation, and that's it. So now, Moses is getting ready to go up to Mount Sinai, and he does it in 3 stages. He goes up, and God says, okay, you're going to get the law. And the people say, we will do and we will hear. They committed to having Torah right away. Now, with the Graveners, we're studying a little Midrash. Okay, part of the Midrash is that God went to some of the other peoples. He went to to Esau, to the people of Esau, and they rejected it. They said, well, we're not going to do anything. We take what we want, and that's the way it is. So, the idea of not stealing, forget it. The Ishmaelites, the idea of hunting and killing and just, taking people over, thou shalt not murder. No. And by the way, that commandment says, thou shalt not murder. That word has been interpreted many different ways, but the idea is laying in wait and killing somebody. Defense, do what you got to do, right? But going out and killing somebody for material reward, for revenge, we don't do that. That's what that commandment's all about. People a lot with their adultery, they didn't care. They didn't care about the family unit. But the Israelites, the children of Israel, embraced the idea of this moral code, of this Torah, of the 10 Commandments. Now, let's talk about the 10 Commandments. We know what they are. I am God who brought you out of Egypt. You shall have no gods before me. Don't take my name in vain and swearing for false oath. Honor the Sabbath. Honor the father and the mother. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not, do not covet thy neighbor's goods. Okay. Don't bear false witness. Okay. Those are your 10 commandments. Now, a kid asked me once, do all the other commandments come from these 10? And my feeling is, yes, they did. Now, somebody may disagree with me, and that's okay. We disagree with each other every now and then. But yeah, why were those 10 given first, right? Because they set the stage for the other 603 and all our codes. See? So that's kind of my interpretation. So the people committed. Now, it's an interesting contrast that the people are committing to this law, to the covenant, to the commandments, without seeing them, and yet we have people that are grumbling about not having water. Who's going to protect them? Where's our food? Gee, it'd be nice to have meat every now and then. Where's our shelter? And it's an interesting contrast, but we see how that plays out as we go through the rest of the Torah. We see that, it's not everybody that partakes in the grumbling. Just a select few. And those are the ones that get the attention. It's like in society itself. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's where sometimes we see the highlights. The people grumbled. Was it all 2 million people? Probably not. That's just my feeling. Probably not. There were just some people that just kind of stood out. And, what happens when you got people grumbling in front of you? You start to believe it, right? It's, human nature. But I'm going to stop there because that might get into a little bit of a sticky wicket, as they say. Anyway, thank you for listening. I've had some feedback on this. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Any more feedback about the prayers that we use during the course of our services and anything we say here or any programs? My door's always open. Please let me know. Love the feedback. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for tuning in. See you Tuesday. See you tonight for our Torah study. Thursday for our study of Midrash.